agree with that. Is he an African?
No.
Hold on a second. You got to ask yourself, well, what makes up an African? Culturally, spiritually, mentally? Is he an African?
We're talking about physical traits.
Well, the only physical trait that's different is what? What are the physical traits that are different from the Caucasian and the African? His skin and what else?
I can tell you.
Okay. That's what I'm asking.
Now, the reason why it's called RH negative or your RH type or RH positive is because the RH stands for Rhesus monkey. Okay, the Rhesus monkey is where the Europeans have their lineage from. Okay, they stem from the Rhesus monkey. Okay, African people do not. Our origins have yet to be discovered on this planet.
All right,
there's no origin for Africans on this planet. Now, if you take back a few years ago, you would notice that Oprah Winfrey and all of those popular people were promoting the blood type testing to find out your ancestry. So what they did was they grouped people into what they call DNA haplogroups, okay? And that was able to trace the Europeans back to, I believe it was 10 clans of Europeans where they originated in the European mountains, okay? Africans had 13 origins. Now, the Europeans only go back as far as I believe 50,000 years. 50,000 years is how long they've been on this planet, and they were evolved. So when you're dealing with the theory of evolution, that's dealing with European history, and that's why Europeans have such a high rate of skin cancer right now, is because they come from the Rhesus monkey, and they no longer wear the hair, they no longer wear the fur on their skin to cover their skin.
That's what you're saying, basically it's genetic.
It's absolutely genetic.
Right, but
that's why when you look at, that's why when you look at the biological element of life, okay, because you said over and over, Sinetta, we're dealing with humans. When you're dealing with humans, the prefix to man as far as human is hue. So when you're dealing with hue, you're dealing with color. The thing that provides color in a person is the melanin molecule. Their melanin molecule is completely different than ours, okay? There's two types of melanin. You have eumelanin and you have pheomelanin. Eumelanin is spelled E-U-M-E-L-A-N-I-N. Pheomelanin is spelled P-H-A-E-M-E-L-A-N-I-N. It's completely different. The melanin molecule that we possess has selenium at its core. The melanin molecule that they possess has sulfur at its core. That's why the foods and the diets that we eat are so important, because it affects us differently. If they have sulfur's an acid, it's a very powerful acid. So if they have acid at the core of their genetic structure, eating an acidic diet is going to affect them differently. Hence, you notice that 5% of Europeans are lactose intolerant, where 95% of African people are lactose intolerant. And that's due only to bloodline mixing over thousands and thousands of years. That's a fact. That's an absolute fact. Now,
so let me ask you, so where do you suppose the white man come from?
The Rhesus monkey. When you're dealing with the theory,
Rhesus monkey.
Absolutely. When you're dealing with the theory of evolution, you're dealing with the Europeans' history and how they came about. In fact, when they did the DNA haplogroup studies, they tested, and there has never, ever been an African that has any ounce of caveman blood in his genetics, in his mitochondria, DNA, and that's what they use for the basis of the test.
Now you basically saying, I noticed that they always show it on National Geographic shows and everything, saying that we came from apes. We didn't come from apes.
Absolutely
White people
not.
came from apes.
Absolutely.
You understand? They always predicted that.
But what you got to deal with is this. And that's why it's so important for us to document our own information. When we document our information, we tell our story. Those are his venues paid for by his money, so he's going to tell his story, which puts him in the best light possible.
Right.
But science tells a whole nother story, and that's why our people dealt with. You know, when we deal with religion now, it's based on mystery and it's based on belief and things like that. When we dealt with our ancestors with science, fact. Okay, if it couldn't be proven, then we didn't deal with it.
Do you agree with anything that the brother is saying?
Well, I don't know anything about what he said. You know, this is a subject that obviously he studied.
Right.
You understand? So I'm not in a position to question his information. I can just take it in, and
do
if I
research.
feel, do research on it.
Right.
But what I want to ask him is, the Rhesus monkey, what part of the world is he indigenous to?
All over.
All over the world.
All over the world. Absolutely. Absolutely.
So you got Rhesus monkeys here in North America?
When you go back, here's the thing. When you go back, because you got to go back, okay, if you're going to deal with this subject, you got to go back a few thousand, tens of thousands, and then even hundreds of thousands of years, because you're looking at the geography of the world changing. Okay. When you deal with the Sahara Desert and places like that, those places were once fertile, lush with vegetation. So you're looking at the landscape changing over time. So when we're dealing with hundreds of thousands of years ago, the world was a different looking place. And the reason why I say that is because a lot of places that are now barren, that don't have life or don't support life, like deserts and colder climates, when you go back that far, were actually lush with vegetation. So when you go up into frozen climates, there's no life up there. And this is where the flesh eating became, this is where the Europeans started practicing the flesh eating, because there was no vegetation there. Okay, so even when you go back to the core of the Europeans' history, he wasn't a flesh eater. That was something that he had to adapt to from being in frozen climates without vegetation. Okay, and when you look at 2, 3, 4, and 5, 10,000 years ago, one of the main things that they were coming into Africa for was the herbs and the vegetation and our medical science.
Hold up, wasn't he always in Europe in the cold climate? Or he was traced out of Africa?
Well, when you go deeper into it, you're going to realize that our ancestors genetically, we enhanced, we created. So that's where a lot of the confusion is coming in, where you have a lot of our scholars saying that he came from us and that we created him. They think that that's something that, a man and a woman came together and created him like that. No, we genetically created him in a test tube. And when you look back into our books, into our history records, you see.
Yeah, but the history speaks about how the whites came in Egypt and destroyed Egypt. You understand? That's what the history talks about.
The Hyksos and things like that.
These
right.
white people, they one thing about
but
the African people, the Egyptians, I'm talking about the time of the Egyptian people, they let people come in because they were so peaceful people. They was building.
No. That's baloney. We never let anybody come in.
So
we
how
was
they
washing niggas. Listen, they came in. First of all, the one most powerful aspect of the Europeans' fighting style, as far as war is concerned, is always been disease. It's always been biological warfare. Okay. So when you look at
the leprosy,
but even more than that, the things that were contagious,
the germs and all that.
The fact that we were so complacent, because when you even go back to the first, second, third, fourth, and fifth dynasties of Egypt, they had those sciences handed to them. Those sciences were handed to them. The pyramids were already standing. Our structures were already standing all around the globe. Right. In fact, the pyramids at Giza are some of the youngest pyramids on the planet. Okay? South America, China, all those places have older pyramids. Right. So that science was handed down to those dynasties. And the reason why I'm emphasizing that the science was handed to them is because they took the science for granted.